Good afternoon to everyone here at the zoo and those of you who are joining us on Zoom. It is a great day to be a Rotarian. And since we have a flag, let's say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Many of you may know that the Rotary Club of Topeka was chartered in 1914 and is one of over 46,000 clubs in over 220 countries in the world. Rotary members believe that we have a shared responsibility to take action on our world's most persistent issues. Our clubs work together to promote peace, fight disease, provide clean water, sanitation, and hygiene, save mothers and children, support education, grow local economies, protect the environment. We provide service to others, promote integrity, and advance world understanding, goodwill, and peace through our fellowship of business, professional, and community leaders. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe in our communities and in ourselves. This is our Rotary moment of the day. If you have a guest, if you would come forward at this time and introduce them.
I'm thrilled to introduce you to Pam Foster, who is a potential member. So I ask you all to be on good behavior. My table's only been so the rest of you can. Pam has recently retired from Washburn University and was head of their EEO office. And we're welcome to have you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'd like to introduce two guys that I work with at KBS, Joel Chris and Lauren Deckett. They've both been at KBS for 28 years, so the whole time I've been there. So wanted to bring them because of the speaker, Mr. Patton, because of our involvement with the zoo. And I'll let them tell you guys all the projects that they've worked on here at the zoo real quick. Good luck.
I'll let you. Yeah, we, like Matt said, we've been working here at the zoo for, gosh, I think the first project I did was their outdoor orangutan exhibit back in 2003, and we've darn near worked at every building here. Kay's Garden, Orange doing the giraffe, worked at the Animal and Man Building addition, Rainforest, elephant, yep, lorikeet. Yeah.
Butterfly,
So,
alligator.
helped out a lot over years. It's been a great partnership and been wonderful working with them.
Thank you for coming. Our Topeka Rotary Foundation released their RFP Tuesday at the library. A copy is on your table. That's for our next signature project over the next 3 years. Our social will be at the Brew Bank on March 31st from 5 to 7 p.m. And I'll repeat at the end of the meeting, but we won't have a noon meeting that day. So if you come, you can enjoy the garden or what other aspects of the zoo on your own. The Rotary Rubbish Roundup will meet at the Seward Boat Ramp. We've moved the time back to 11:15, a week from this Saturday, so April 2nd. I won't be there. I'll be in Wichita at the PETS conference. That's a Rotary function, not a homeowners association. I'm proud to bring to the podium our own Brandon Wiley, who will introduce our guest speaker. And don't forget about the cup money. The cup money goes to Jayhawk area Boy Scouts. I had that on the sheet somewhere. I missed it.
Thank you, Steve. Fellow Rotarians, you know, I had a couple meetings off-site this morning, and so I got to the zoo after it opened, and I could hear this roaring inside the gate, and I thought to myself, what the heck is Fred upset about now? Then I realized it's just the dinosaurs. No, it is truly an honor of mine to introduce Representative Fred Patton. And typically I would do something like this off the cuff, but Fred happens to have a background that I think is truly worth sharing relating to his biography. So Representative Patton has served in the legislature since 2014. He is currently chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, the House Rules and Journal Committee, and he also serves on the Preservation Committee and the Corrections and Juvenile Justice Committee, as well as the Redistricting Committee. Previously, he served on the Special Committee on Kansas Emergency Management, the House K-12 Budget Committee, and the list goes on and on. Fred has a significant history here in this community with the Seaman School Board, and I believe served 5 terms as president on that board. And so you can start to see a pattern that exists in Fred's life. I've known Fred since 2010, 2011. He joined the Friends of the Zoo Board in 2011, has served 2 or 3 terms as president on that board, and has been in that leadership position during some of the most significant transitions in this zoo's history. There's kind of 2 words that I think are very synonymous of Fred. The first one is giving. Fred gives and gives to his community, and whether that's Topeka or the state of Kansas, he just gives unlike any person I've ever known. That other word that comes to mind when I think of Fred is the word no, because he never learned that, I don't think. Anyone needing help, guidance, advice, Fred's always the first person to volunteer. And it's truly my honor to welcome Fred to this podium to share his story with our Rotary group.
Well, good, what is it? Afternoon, everyone. Yeah, thanks for that, Brendan. He had to stretch to come up with nice things to say about me, and he did a really good job. I appreciate that. So, yeah, so this is the other zoo I spend my time at. I'm downtown at the real zoo most of the time, and I come to the fun one to do things out here often. So if you follow the legislature, yesterday was drop dead day. So that's the date that most bills have to get out. I say most bills because there's exceptions to everything, right, Joan? Until the legislature goes home, there can be more damage done. So yesterday was the deadline that most bills are supposed to get out of chambers. So the Senate worked until about 2 o'clock in the morning last night. And that was kind of their pattern all week long. And so we have a couple days off, or at least from session. We'll be getting ready, and we go back next week on Monday, and we conference committee. So that's where we kind of battle out between Senate positions and House positions and try to come up with something that we can all agree on and move forward. We still have really all the big issues to deal with, except the House and Senate redistricting maps. We reached what I think is a pretty good compromise there yesterday. It passed out 100 and some votes out of the House. So that'll go to the governor. So hopefully that's behind us, but congressional maps are still kind of up in the air. Budget's always the last thing we do. We've been spending a lot of time talking about what tax policy should be. For the first time since I've been there, we've got a lot of money in the bank. I started and we had no money in the bank. And so now the challenge is, how do you spend money, or what do you do with the additional money you have? And so we've been working through that. I'm sure I'm missing another big issue. Lots of big issues still to deal with. So lots of fun ahead. Stay tuned, or if you prefer not to, you don't have to watch and It's a mess. Anyway, but I'm excited to be here. As I look around the room, most of you probably know everything I'm going to talk about because I see we have people who donate to the zoo. We have people who help us manage aspects of the zoo. We have people that build the zoo. We have city women who helped us do a lot of what we've done out here. So you guys know what we do. You spend a lot of time here, and I appreciate that. My why do I spend so much time at the zoo? Well, growing up, my grandmother lived right over on Fairlawn, just a little bit south of 10th Street. And my brother and I spent a lot of time with her. And in doing so, we often came to the zoo. I remember we'd drive down 10th Street and go by Kay McFarland's house and the guineas crossing the street. And we'd stop there and talk because my grandma either went to school with her or somehow knew her from school. I don't remember all the stories, but I have lots of memories growing up here, my brother and me. And so when the opportunity came up to get more involved in the zoo, I'm like, absolutely, I want to be involved. I filled out the application to be on the board, submitted to the board, and they said, no, thank you. So I'm like, well, heck with that. I'm going to keep trying until I get on the board. And thankfully, a year or two later, I think that was before Brendan was even here. They thought I was, well, not even to get into it. They thought I was someone else and they didn't like that someone else. And so I had to convince them that I was not that person. And it's been so much fun being on the zoo board. It's, again, my escape from everything else I do in life that's not always fun. No matter, even if it's a challenging thing we have out here, it's something unique that you don't get to do anywhere else. We have so much opportunity here, so many people that you get to see and interact with. It's just a super fun place to be. When I first came on the board, Brendan had been hired. He'd been here maybe a year or so, but the zoo was in a pretty bad spot. If you remember about that time, there were just a lot of things going on here that should not be happening at the zoo. There were groups calling for the zoo to possibly be shut down or animals to move away. And you just look at what has happened here in the last 12 years since Brendan's been here, and it is night and day. We went from a zoo that was struggling and unfortunately animals dying that shouldn't be dying to where now we're just a growing zoo, lots of supporters. It's something new and exciting coming out of here every day that you hear about. Hundreds of thousands of people coming here, not just to see the zoo, but to come to special events and fundraising activities. Again, just an awesome place to be. But that wasn't easy. Brendan, he came in and we had a good staff and many of those people are still here, but we didn't have the leadership that we needed. And thankfully with Brendan, we have that. We didn't have a master plan. The zoo had for a number of years just kind of done this or that, or they thought they needed to build this exhibit and they didn't put a lot of time and effort into what that exhibit should look like. And so when Brendan first came in, we had to go in and fix some of the exhibits that weren't built correctly. And so we took a lot of time just cleaning up the mess that was here when Brendan arrived. And then we've been able to spend the last 5, 6, 7 years doing some really exciting things. Right out of the gate, we adopted a master plan. There were some outside forces trying to get the zoo to get rid of some animals, the elephants. They didn't think we should have elephants in Topeka anymore. And city council got bombarded with that. And so we adopted a master plan. And while we've tweaked that over time, you see a lot of it. Camp Cowabunga, Kay's Garden, Giraffe. It's not necessarily everything that was on that first master plan or where we drew it out to be, but they're concepts that we had. And you'll see that in the coming years. We've got lots of good ideas still to come. When Vince reached out to me, he wanted me to talk about, I think, what we've experienced in the governance change. And so a little background there. The city has operated and managed the zoo since its inception. It's been based right here on land given to the city of Topeka by the Gage Park family. Everything on this side of Gage Boulevard, pursuant to the deed, says it will always be owned by the city and always be operated as a zoo, or it goes back to the Gage family. And so the city, even though Friends of the Zoo now manages and operates the zoo, it's still owned by the city. We, for years, nearly since Brendan's been here, had been working on a way to become a more public-private partnership between the city and Friends of the Zoo, getting away from an entity that a 10-member city council had to make every decision that happened out here, transition to where the nonprofit operates. And we hired a consultant. We'd go through the process, we'd get really close, and then a city manager would leave. And you'd have to wait and get a new one and start that process over. And we'd do it, and we'd get really close, and city manager would leave. And I think we did that 3 times, Brendan. I don't know. Every time I thought we're almost there, it all fell apart and you'd have to start again. And I was to the point where if it doesn't happen this time, we're not doing it. And it's in the middle of COVID. Now's not the time to do it. And thankfully, maybe a little bit because of COVID, it did come together. And we spent that final push day and night and you name it, working to negotiate back and forth with the city. Is because what we told the city and what we told our members is that this isn't something we're going to do if it doesn't benefit everyone. We're not out to make money here at the zoo. Our goal is to operate the zoo in a manner that it can bring in the most guests and we can have the biggest impact and affect our mission. And so we went back and forth to try to figure out how to make that happen. One thing I did leave out though is through that process, that 9 or 10 year process, is we began to transition things that we could. And so we transitioned, when I first came on the board, I guess I should say, Friends of the Zoo is really just a fundraising group. We'd sell memberships, so you could be a member of the Friends of the Zoo. We put on a fundraising event here or there, but that was about it. We had a staff member and a half, and so really small group. And over that period of time, we transitioned a number of things. So guest services, admissions, concessions, janitorial, and towards the end, even education, we started switching over to Friends of the Zoo. So it was really a seamless transition when we did it. While we were 2 organizations, everybody was kind of on the same team and we were all working for, towards the same goal. And so while, we have separated ourselves from the city somewhat, certainly still big supporters, still support the zoo financially, which we'll get to that a little bit, but still write us a check quarterly to help us operate the zoo, because the zoo will never be a zoo that can operate without some sort of tax support. So we transitioned April 3rd. We thought we knew what we were going to do, and in lots of areas we did, but there were so many things that we didn't have in place. We didn't have investment policies. We didn't have other plans that you'd want to have in place. And so we've spent the last now almost year putting those things in place, walking through what an organization that's running the zoo should have an effect. And it's been a really fun process. Again, we've been able to bring in other professionals and individuals in the community that are experts in these areas to help us with that. We've implemented, we have the flexibility now to implement things that we wouldn't be able to do before. And you've seen some of those things. The partnership we have right now with the Discovery Center and the county with Dinosaurs Alive is something that I don't know that you would have seen before, because there have been so many hoops to jump through, and we had to make decisions really quickly and determine how much money we could commit to that, and what that would look like. And other things like for the giraffe project, this is the first time that Friends of the Zoo has overseen a project like that. And so again, we've got flexibility to do things. When we see that there might be grants or other opportunities for dollars, we can jump right in there and go after them without having to go through the bureaucracy of city government, which again, not complaining, they were really good team members, but this has just freed it up. So everything so far that we thought would happen, more donors, more attendance, more flexibility, more happy staff, able to respond to the needs of the animals quicker, everything has come to fruition that we thought it would. So I'm super excited about what the future of our zoo holds for us. One thing during that governance process we talked about is what is the right funding model for the zoo? Currently, the dollars that we get from the city all comes from the property tax levy of the city of Topeka. And we know, if you look at the numbers, that a majority of the guests that come to our zoo don't even come from in Shawnee County, and certainly outside the city of Topeka. And so a couple times, I remember when I was speaking to the city council, I'm like, I just don't think it's fair as me who lives out in the county, that I get to take advantage of everything the zoo has to offer, and I'm not supporting it financially with my tax dollars, but everyone who lives in the city is. And so we looked at models. We really looked at the library model for the longest time, and we had a number of meetings with them. But through those meetings, we determined maybe another taxing entity in Shawnee County that taxes property tax isn't the right model. We went and visited the Kansas City Zoo in late September, I think. Took the Discovery Center with us and met with their director there, because they had not long ago gone to the Missouri legislature and got approval to put an initiative on the ballot in 4 counties for a sales tax percentage. And we wanted to learn how they did that. And so we came back from that. We had discussions with the county, Discovery Center, and Friends of the Zoo about what could we put together that may make sense for Shawnee County. And so we put together legislation. that would create the Gage Park Improvement Authority. And that Gage Park Improvement Authority, if ever approved by the voters of Shawnee County, it could levy a fraction of a sales tax. And so we went to the legislature and asked permission for that, not to implement the authority, not to put the sales tax on a ballot, but to give the county at some point in time the ability to put that on the ballot. It would free up those mill levies that we get from the zoo, for the zoo from the property tax base in Topeka. So we think it would be positive. We think we could sell it to the community. Your property tax might not go down, but at least we would free up the property tax to be able to use for other things. And we could then get funding through a sales tax when we know it's visitors from Topeka or from outside Topeka that are coming to the zoo, the Discovery Center, the park. We introduced that legislation. We had a hearing a week ago Monday. It passed out a week ago Wednesday of committee. It didn't make it out by turnaround, but as I said, not everything's dead at drop dead day. So I've got my fingers crossed that we still may be able to get it in a conference committee in the coming weeks and have at least the authority of the legislature to continue these discussions. We anticipate doing polling with the community, find out what their wants and needs are. Is this something the community would support? And if so, then that puts us on a stable path for the future of a funding model that I think is more fair to those that live in the city of Topeka. Let's see, I'm rambling. Where are we at? Questions about anything that we're doing out here? Yeah.
What's the next big one?
Well, we don't know for sure yet. Personally, I think it would be cool if we did a really exciting, large-scale children's zoo in the back. Right now, we have the petting zoo. It's an okay petting zoo, but you go to some zoos and they've got some really awesome exhibits for kids and interactive and splash parks and those types of things. And so we've been talking about that. There's other big things that could be in the master plan someday. We've got a lot of grass on the north end that you could do some, what do we call that, northern shores with maybe sea lions or bring back polar bears. We've got lots of ideas, as we've seen with this project, the raft. If we have a donor come in and they're a significant donor, well, that might be the next project if there's something they're interested in. And so if you've got millions of dollars and you want to have that conversation, we can figure out what the next project's going to be. Yeah.
How did the zoo do during COVID?
Actually, so the zoo was closed for
2 months.
2 months, but it was one of the best years we had, thanks in large part to Zoo Lights. Zoo Lights is something that we had looked at 3 or 4 years before. I remember when it was brought to the board, I'm like, no, it's super expensive to do. We didn't have enough electricity throughout the zoo to do it. Staff, you need lots of staff to man it. And so we kind of said no. But then it came back up again, and we've got a little bit better infrastructure throughout the zoo when it comes to utilities. LED lights now are a fraction of what they were just a few years before, so you don't need near the electricity or the expense to do it. And we had Evergy and other community partners step up to help fund that. And so never could we have imagined the number of people that would have come to Zoo Lights. And I think the reason it was so successful year one was because of COVID. People hadn't had anything to do for months, and you're locked at home in the winter. Let's go out to the zoo where we can spread out. We timed entry to try to keep, so we didn't have bottlenecks, lots of people having to interact with each other. And it was a home run. I mean, it was great timing also for the transition from city government, because it was a negotiation. We didn't get near the money we wanted from the city. And so we had to make up the thanks, Karen. We had to come up with the dollars elsewhere. And we knew we could raise more money when we transitioned away. But having that money come in from Zoo Lights was a huge hit. And that happened to fall on COVID. Usually no one comes to the zoo in December or January or sometimes February. And we had record numbers. And thanks to the other things, like I mentioned, the Dino Days, Brendan wrote this down for me somewhere. We had 25,000 people come last week to the zoo for Zoo Lights, which is almost more than our average of March, right? Didn't I see 25,840 or something is our average?
Your electric infrastructure.
Yeah, well, and just in the last couple of weeks, we have ran lights and sound throughout the zoo. Now, I don't know if any of it's working yet. Is it? Oh, it is working. So it's going to be even easier this year. If you come to Zoo Lights, this year we had a little bit better music throughout the zoo. Last year we only had music when you walked in. I think that's a big part of someone's experience. You're walking through and you have Christmas music playing. Well, now we have the capacity to have sound zoned throughout the zoo. We can make announcements if there's emergency situations. There's lighting. There's path lighting in Kay's garden already. If you look around, there's those brown colored structures that light up the garden at night, but we don't have any lighting throughout the zoo other than a pole here or there. So you're here at night, it's kind of creepy. So we fixed that. So yeah, and Zoo Lights was even a bigger success this year. We didn't know what to anticipate. We're like, was it a really big success because it was COVID? And we did better than we did last year. And hopefully we'll have a larger area footprint of Zoo Lights again this coming fall with the giraffe area. So we'll keep growing it. We don't want it to become stale. So if you notice this year, we tried to move things around and some areas of Zoo Lights may disappear and something new there. We want to make it something that's fresh every year. Yeah.
I grew up a few blocks east of here, so this was my park as a kid when I grew up.
Right.
And the focal point of the zoo at that time was the Monkey Island. I don't know how many of you remember the Monkey Island? Has that ever been considered as a new project?
Yeah, we
Not with the city hall.
we do talk about it now and then. I do think it would be a hit. I think, with current, does he? Okay, well, there we go. The challenge would be, the standards that the American zoos and aquariums have are much higher than they were from when you were a kid and I was a kid. And so doing those types of things are much more costly. But I do think it would be a hit because we hear that all the time. And you often see on, the Facebook Shawnee County history pages, it seems like every couple months someone posts a picture of Monkey Island. So it would be fun, but it's not in the current master plan. Yeah.
Where are we on the elephant controversy?
I think we're past the elephant controversy. We've not had any of the outside groups come in for a long time. The elephant issue, though, is something that we're going to continue to have conversations with the community about because there are not elephants in the United States anymore to have in zoos, at least for a while. So let me back up. When we did the master plan, we did it to put in a new, much larger giraffe exhibit or elephant exhibit, which now is where giraffe are going. We thought that would be the key to the future. We would try to get a couple younger elephants, hopefully some breeding age elephants and have a breeding program. In fact, Brendan and I, in 4 or 5 years ago, it was about this time, almost this exact time of year, we put information out across the United States. If anyone had elephants that they wanted to get rid of, we were willing to have discussions with them. And I think it was a Saturday morning or a Friday afternoon, someone called the zoo and asked to speak to the elephant department. And so I think the phone rang in the elephant barn, and there was a lady in Florida who had 2 elephants. They had been traveling elephants. They'd gone from like county fair to county fair, and her husband passed away. And her husband, while they traveled together, it was her husband was the primary caregiver to the elephants, and they were interested. They were looking for a home for the elephants. And so Brendan's like, "What do you have on Monday?" Like, well, thankfully it was a weird period in the legislature where I had like 24 hours off. And I'm like, let's go. So we flew down to Tampa, rented a car, and went to, is it Gilkinson? Gilbert, some little G town right south of Tampa. And it's like Carneyville, USA. Like this town didn't have, maybe they had ordinances to encourage carnival people to come there. And so as you drove through, you saw like state fair stuff in people's backyards. And I'm like, where are we going? It's like the road got creepier and creepier. And we pull up to this gate and you had to press the button, I think, and talk in, and the gate's open. And these 2 elephants were in a small garage, like in the backyard of these people's homes, tied up to the floor. And we went out there and immediately we knew, maybe we went in not thinking we wanted both of these elephants. One was fairly old for an elephant. The other one, the African elephant, is the one we were interested in getting because we thought that was the direction we would go. She was relatively young. They had tried to, I don't know, and she'd had some unsuccessful pregnancy attempts, but we thought, maybe she's the bridge to the future. But as soon as we saw them, we were like, we've got to figure out how to get them out of here. And so we did. We brought them both back here. So for a while, we had 4 elephants. Not long after we brought them back here, we discovered that the African, the one we thought would be the bridge to the future, had a number of health conditions, and she didn't last very long. And then we lost one of our longtime elephants, and so now we're down to one. The older one we found in Tampa. We didn't want the star of Smokey and the Bandits too, who lives in our zoo. She's here along with our elder African elephant. So any day, I mean, if you see a press release that says that an elephant passed away here, don't be surprised. It could happen any day. We thought we were really close with one last year in the summer, and it's warming up again. And if she makes it through this summer, I think, we'll all be happy, but the odds probably aren't great. So soon we won't have elephants, and there just aren't elephants in the United States to get. They take too long to breed and to get to breeding age. Most of the elephants in the United States are fairly old. You used to be able to bring them in, import them from other countries, because in those countries, they're killing numbers of them a day because they just have too many. But because of treaties and import regulations and those types of things, we're just not able to get them here. And so according to the information Brendan shared with us, we're a long way in the United States from being in a spot where you're going to see elephant population go back up. So the elephant controversy is gone, but we're not going to have elephants here before long. And so that's why we decided to use that area for giraffe. And then as soon as the elephants are gone, we're going to try as quickly as possible convert that to rhino. So we'll still have an animal there that hopefully people are interested in seeing. Long answer to you. What happened to the controversy?
Because the first time I campaigned for mayor, the first question I got on forum was, what is your policy on the elephant?
Yeah.
I still remember.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. So the one that popped up 10 years ago. Oh, awful. I mean, and they weren't even really, like, no one local was involved in it. It was people from all over yeah. There were a number of groups. Anyway, city council did the right thing, I think. I mean, the right thing for the elephants that we had in this zoo were not to go somewhere else. They'd lived here since they were young. They were friends with each other. They'd have to be separated because one was African and one was Asian. It was the right thing to do. Yeah.
Fred, just a note on that, about 2 or 3 weeks ago in New Yorker magazine, there was a long article about court rulings around the United States that are finding that elephants qualify as persons for purposes of habeas corpus.
Really? Huh.
Qualified?
Oh, well, that's all we need.
Can't be held without
Yeah.
being represented.
Huh.
Without being represented by.
Interesting. Yeah, Vince.
We have on Zoom, someone asking about the status of the food tax.
Of the food tax? Oh, in the legislature. Okay, so I'm not on tax, so I probably know about as much about this as you guys do from following it on the internet. But the governor has her axe the tax proposal, which would do away with food sales tax completely. Kind of. I don't know that her proposal gets to city and county tax, and so it wouldn't. And maybe it does. So I don't know the answer. It doesn't. Okay, it doesn't. So you'd still have food sales tax, if any tax levy that city and county does, but it would do away with the state level. The legislature has a couple different proposals out there. I think some that phase it in, some that does away with half of it, and the rest could potentially ratchet down. I'm guessing we end up somewhere in between. Hopefully we get there soon. We're quickly approaching. You've got all kinds of answers, Joan. I should just ask you, revenue wise, I assume there's got to be some deadlines pretty quick that are quickly approaching if we want to do this January or July 1st, because we're a part of a multi-state sales tax. There we go. So we're quickly running out of time.
Streamline sales tax, and it's to accommodate retailers, grocers.
Right.
People that have different sets of rules, so that we need to stick to those.
Yeah. Oh, agreed. Yeah. Yeah. We vary from it and it causes all kinds of issues. So I think we'll get there. I just don't know if we'll get to zero. We'll see. We'll see. I hope we get close. The sales tax is in my opinion. I know lots of people complain about property tax, but sales tax is the one. Most of the time, people are buying things they need, and if they need it, why are we taxing them at a high rate, especially on food and other necessities?
Will there be more parking in close proximity to the zoo?
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
So assuming a grant that we've applied for comes in, we are going to add more parking up here on the south end. Well, a part of the draft project is also a second entrance. So field trips, groups, those types of things will enter up there. We certainly intend to use that for zoo lights as well, because if you came to zoo lights, you know, you're parking at the Discovery Center and walking over. So quite a bit of more parking up on that end. And with the second entrance, I think that will help as well. So you can park closer to where you're going to go into the zoo. For parking beyond that, city and county, in my opinion, need to do a master plan of Gage Park. And so we know what the layout is of what future development, those types of things are, because it's hard to envision where you could put additional parking. But we've talked, do you close off Zoo Boulevard right here? It's the kids that run back and forth between the playground and our parking lot. That's not a great idea either. And so could we somehow turn this into more parking and not make it a drive-through road? There's options, but we need a master plan to do that. And I'm hopeful if we can get this legislation passed, maybe that's a little bit incentive for us to get city and county. I think the city's the one that has been willing to do it. The county's kind of been the pushback. And so we'll see, we'll get there. And if we need to raise money to help it happen, I'm pretty confident we can help do that too. We just need their commitment to put together a master plan.
I was going to ask you to just touch on the fact that with some of the regulation things that you've been talking about, the transformation of the zoo in the last 10 to 12 years from being a zoo to being an educational and conservation institute.
Yeah, so our goal is not to have animals stuck in small cages for people just to come by and walk by and see. We think we make a difference when people come to the zoo, and that changes their choices and their decisions. And maybe they buy different candies, or they invest in different, they don't invest in things that may harm animals in other parts of the world. And so we're really focused on conservation, not just exhibiting animals. We've got a great education program, one that's bursting at the seams, where we're really focused on, getting to kids at a young age for them to understand that the choices they make have a difference in the world around them. We're trying to figure out how we can get more kids in those programs, and that's a little bit of a challenge because of spacing and those types of things. But yeah, conservation is really now our focus completely. But to do that, obviously you need to have animals and exhibits and those types of things, because if people can see an elephant, they're more likely to appreciate what elephants are facing out there in the real world. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. We are delighted to have our meetings here at the zoo, and thank Brendan for hosting us each week. Fred will have you sign this book as our speaker today, and we'll donate that to the library at Ross Elementary School. I apologize to Danae. Danae is our latest applicant and is here again today. And my understanding is she's going to be here until we get her on, until the board can vote her in. So it's great to have you, Danae. A reminder that next week we do not have a meeting at noon. We have a social at 5 at the Brew Bank. So if you'll stand, we'll close with the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Will it be fun and kind? Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.